Morning everyone. Good morning ma'am. Chapter 15. Types, characteristic, and identifications of learners with difficulty and self-care. So, in 1990s, accepted clinical terms for intellectual disabilities included implicity, feeble, madness, and mental deficiency. So, in 1990s is there are a popular belief which is a intellectual disability is synonymous. So, there are a property, soft crime, and sexual profligacy. So, ang nahitabo diri is gi-accept na nila ang terms of intellectual disability. Na there are a child that have a disability with himself or herself. Next is 1904. First textbooks about intellectual disability. So Martin Bohr published mental defectiveness and first text suggests that hereditary factors play important role in intellectual disability. So, diya sa 1904, si Martin Bohr, he create a first textbook all about intellectual disability. So, he discusses there the intellectual disability. So, and the first text nga nakabutang sa textbook, nagsuggest siya nga ang hereditary beta factors is very important to intellectual disability. So, next is 1907. Involuntary sterilizations law. Indians become the first state to pass a sterilizations law for people with intellectual disability held in state institutions. So, there sa 1907 is there are a voluntary sterilizations law which is Indiana. He is a became first state passed sterilizations law all about the people of having intellectual disability in state the institutions. So let's move on to 1912. Rise in Equinix through the Kalikak family and other pseudoscientific case historians of heritability of intellectual disability. Eugenicists aim to isolate a people with disability from community and establish the forced sterilizations law. So, rise in Equinix. So, kani is ang Kalikak family is nag-ingon sila na ang ang naado intellectual disability sa community is ikuan sila is isolate sila sa lain nga community sa normal people community versus sa naay mga intellectual disability. So, in 1920, the institution system expand nationwide institutions for people with intellectual disability rapidly reach capacity. So, in 1920 daw is naga-expand na siya in nationwide ang mga naay intellectual disability. So, in 1933, American Associations for Study for Freely Needed changes its name American Associations of Mental Deficiency. So, in 1933 daw, ang American Associations nag-study siya about the changes sa name sa American Associations of Mental Deficiency. So, gilahi na ang name niya sa 1933. So, in 1935, the rise of state suction sterilizations effort reached peak during the Great Depressions in 1937. Reported in 27,839 people with intellectual disability has been forcibly sterilized. So, there is a 1935 is the rise of state succionations and sterilizations is so naghatag sila effort for peak during Great Depression. So, there are 27,869 people with intellectual disability have been forcibly sterilized. Next is 1930 to 1950 institutions overcrowding. Number of people with intellectual disabilities state-held institutions grew around 60,000 in 1930 to nearly 1,400 in 1950. So, there is a 1930 to 1950 is over institutions overcrowding. So, ang intellectual disability is tagadaghan nga nagadaghan siya sa community. So, habang hantod nga nagataas ang mga years, nagadaghan pud ang naay intellectual disability. So, let's move on to 1946, slaves or patients. The article detailing in the poor conditions inside Maryland's Rose Hunt State Training School published in Catholic Worker. So, diri is ginadiscuss niya ang slave or patients sa mga naay intellectual disability, which is nagatukod sila og training school nga nagapublish sa mga Catholic worker. So this is a poor conditions inside the Marklands House Rose Hold State sa ibang bansa. So next is 1950. So nationwide parent movement begins to offer help and support to parents across the country, representative in 23 parent groups from national associations of parents and friends mentally and retarded children, now known as the ARC of United States. So, in 1950, nationwide parent movement begins. Diri is, mga panghitabo diri is, suportahan nila ang mga parents or 23 parents group or ginatawag ni siya nga the ARC of United States, which is ang mga nanay ginatabangan aning nga programa para sa mga naay anak nga mentally retarded children. So kani is ginatabangan nila ang mga parents or ginatagaan nila ang mga idea or mga knowledge all about the kanang mentally retarded children. Ginatagaan nila og kanang mga idea how to teach them properly na ingana ilang mga kondisyon, ingana ilahang mga ilahang pamatasan, ingana sila. So they teach the parents. So in 1950 to 1950, parents and spotlight speak out author Pearl Pipe book The Child Never Be grew actress Lily Evans Rogers in their underwear with coded stories about their daughters who were born in disabilities. So there is a 1950 to 1953 ang parents ang spotlight. It's because they kabutan diri is ang author Pearl Five Buck, siya ang nagsulat sa book nga Child We Never Grew and actress Tell Evan Rogers, which is mga parents ang highlight or main topic ani sa iyahang libro. So 1958, Landmark Law President now light in Shower passes PL 85926, the first federal legislation established to provide funds and university training programs in yield of special education. So there is a 1959. There are a law of landmark law, which is the present president is si Downlight in Hoover passes PL 85926. He is a first federal legislations nga nag-establish or nag-provide og funds para sa mga special programs para sa mga bata nga naay special needs. So naghatag siya og special educations for them. So in 1959, the American Associations of Mental Deficiencies in 1959 manual uses the term of mentally retarded in place to mentally deficient. So in 1959 gibago na nila ang tawag sa mentally retarded into mentally deficient in 1959. So dili na ginagamit ang mentally retarded, replace na siya og mentally deficient. So next is 1960. President Panel on Mental Retardations established the President John K. Fidelly Louch's panel moved the USA from institutionalizations and toward community-based support system. So in 1960 is si President Panel daw is og si President Chan Kidney is nagakuan sila og mga utilization sa mga community nga naga-support system sa mga special child sa mga special needed person. So in 1967 is institutions census speaks 1,946,50 people with intellectual disability living state or institutions. So 1968 first National Special Olympic Games held in Chicago with athletes in 25 states and Canada. So diri in 1968 is diri nagsugod tanan. Nagsugod ang mga Olympics, mga games para sa mga Paralympics sa mga mga special needs nga mga child or mga kids. So diri nagsugod ang Special Olympics Games sa Chicago and 25 states sa Canada. So let's move on to 1971 landmark course cases. Pennsylvania Associations for Retarded Children versus Commonwealth of Pennsylvania supports rights of children with intellectual disabilities to public education. So in 1971 landmark court is so diri is ginasuportahan nila ang rights sa mga children having intellectual disabilities sa mga public education kay kasagaran mga public education ginabuli ang mga na intellectual disabilities nga children. It's because of their anang way sila nga mag-talk, way sila nga mukilos nga dili normal, so ginabuli. So kani is in 1971 diri na nagsugod tanan ang pag-protect sa mga rights sa mga children having intellectual disabilities. So next is 1972 Willowsbrook exposed journalist Geraldo Rivera eras a series of investigative reports about horrific conditions of Long Island's Willow State School that storm parks, outrages, and conditions. So 1975 separate and never equal President General formed signs into law the Educations of Handicapped Children Act PL 94142. So in 1975 daw is separate is never equal. True, tama man po kay ang pag-separate og never equal is dili gyud siya ang separate is dili gyud siya never gyud siya naging equal. Why? It's because gi-separate nimo ang child sa normal nga child, so dili siya equal. So maapakan nimo ang rights sa naay intellectual disabilities nga children. So kaning act or kaning law is to protect or to having a kanang kinatagaan niyo og kanang rights ang mga intellectual disabilities nga dili siya i-separate sa mga normal nga mga children. So they give equal educational opportunities to all children and disabilities. So in 1979 community inclusion, so the Center of Human Policy, Sinocos University issues community imperative declarations affirming the right of all people with disabilities to live in part of the community. So in 1979 is diri ginapakita nila or napakita sa Center of Human Policy of Sinocos nga naay gihapoy part sa community ang or naay part sa community ang intellectual disabilities. So abot pasabot is pantay-pantay lang gihapon gitagaan nila rights ang mga naay mga intellectual disabilities children. So walay lamangan, so pantay-pantay lang. It's because naay act or naay law nga nagaprotect sa naay intellectual disabilities. Next is 1981 Bill opens eyes. So, a TV movie about Bill Sachter, a man intellectual disabilities, non-popular coffee shop University of Iowa advised people who intellectual disabilities can be productive value members of the community. So, in 1981 is kani siya is na siya kana intellectual disability. So nagtukod siya coffee shop at the University of Iowa. So ginapakita niya or gina-encourage niya ang naay mga intellectual disabilities nga dili na siya hadlang para dili nimo maabot imong gusto. Gina-advance pud niya or gina-advise niya or gina-encourage niya ang anak mga tao to be a productive and value members of the community. Dili porket nga naa ka intellectual disability is you have a limitations. So ginakuan niya, gina-motivate niya ang mga tao nga naay intellectual disability nga push ang ilahang dreams. So in 1907 is Willows broke close its door. So 1990 Americans Disabilities Act is passed protecting the civil rights of people with disabilities. So in 1990 ang Americans nga nagtukod ang mga naghatag ang Americans og mga act about sa disabilities. So to protect the civil rights sa mga people nga naay disabilities. So in 1901 self-advocacy years. So advocates becoming empowered nationals umbrella organizations of self-advocacy established at the Conference of Nashville within 2 years. Sabi has applicated chapter in 37 states. So in 1901 daw is ang CABA is nagahatag silang advocacy to establish a conference Nashville in 2 years. So applicated ni siya in 37 states. So in 1996 is medical milestone. So originally defined as heart-lung transplant become her Down syndrome's diagnosis. Sandra Jensen becomes the first person with intellectual disability to receive a organ transplant. So si Sandra Jensen is na popular siya, it's because he became a first person nga nakatawat og organ transplant. Siya ang first nga na intellectual disability nga nakagawas ay nakahatag og organ transplant. So naa siya sakit nga Down syndrome diagnosis. So gitagaan siya or nag-donate sa og heart lung transplant. So in 2000 the international census drops last on 50,000. So in 2024 inclusion takes first reauthorizations of individual with disabilities, educations of IDA, further translations toward inclusive classrooms. All students receiving special education reserve must now only be involved with the progress of general classrooms. So in 2004 daw is ang IDAs is naghahatag sila og kanang mga general classroom to the kanang naay intellectual disabilities. So receive special education serve must now also be involved. So next 2010 IDA celebrates 35 years in US Department of Education. So in 1910 is nag-celebrate ang IDA og 35 years and the US Department of Education, which is ang mental retardations is gi-replace na siya into intellectual disability. So giilisa na tong mental retardations to intellectual disability. So next is definitions of intellectual disability. So over the years various terms of identifications of intellectual disability has been proposed. During the early times the terms idiots from the Greek words meaning people who did not hold the public office. So common na nato madungog ang idiots sa mga movies, sa mga English movie or American movie. So ang meaning diyan in the Greek word is people who did not hold the public office. So next is has been used those with severe cognitive defects. In 19th century the term of imbecile from the Latin word weak and feeble. So in Latin word naman, ang idiots is weak and feeble was given as the label for less reserved degree of intellectual disability. For man intellectual disability in terms limited and supplementations were used. So three is ginakuha nila ang idiot. So ang idiot sa una is Sa Greek word is people who did not hold the public office, di ba? So karon ang term sa idiot sa to is inappropriate and stigmatizing. It's because ginagamit nila na through bully. So you're idiot. Ginaana nila, di ba, ang mga bata nga na ay disability. Next is, according to IDA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act defines intellectual disability significantly severage general intellectual functioning existing currently in defects in behavior manifesting during development period and adversely affects the child educational performance with the definitions of criteria for diagnosis and specialist Individuals with Disability Educations Act. So, here is the significantly average intellectual functionings. It refers to scores of more standard deviations below the mean of standard intelligence. So, here is the IQ score. So, kung naa ka sa 1 to 70, means low. Kung naa ka sa 71 to 84, below average sa imong IQ, and 116 to 144, above average sa IQ nimo. And then, kung naa ka sa 145 to 150, it's mean the high na imong IQ score. So, kung naa ka sa 160 plus, it means genius na ka. Kaya sa mga philosopher, they have a 160 plus na IQ. So, in significant difficulty with task, daily living, or adaptive behavior. So, as you can see in this picture, na ay bata nga nagsuklay. So, kanang na-adapt niya kung unsa ihang nakita sa community, or ihang masundog, or ma-adapt niya na nga kwan. So, dapat natay proper o appropriate na ginatudo sa mga child with disability. So, defects in intellectual functioning adaptive behavior must occur during the development period with different intellectual disabilities which other disabilities of. So, na mga different disabilities ang every child nga special. So, napo na sila kanang different kinds of kanang pag-atiman sa ilaha, pag-care, or pag-train sa ilaha. And then, according to AAID, definitions intellectual abilities, pieces significant limitations in both intellectual functionings and adaptive functionings which shall be occur before age of 18 years. So, number 1 is limitations of present functioning must be considered within the context of the person, community, environment with regarded the age, peers, and culture. So, number 2, valid assessment consider cultural, linguistic diversity as well as the differences communication, sensory, motor, behavioral functions. Number 3, limitations often conflicts with threaten with the individual. 4. Limitations are described for purpose profiling individuals needed support and life functionings of person with intellectual disability will improve in giving appropriate personalized supports. So last one is according to the APA, so American Psychiatric Association's 2023. Defines intellectual disability as defects as general mental disabilities including reasoning, problem solving, planning, abstract thinking, judgment, academic learning, and learning from experiences. These defects result in impairment adaptive functioning such as 1. Ability to meet standard person defense, dependence, and social responsibility in one or more aspects of daily life including communication, social participation, academic or occupational functionings, and personal independence at home in a community settings. So the next reporter is si Shara ang magpadayon sa next topic.